Your Humanities Half Hour is brought to you by the Northern Marianas Humanities Council.
Welcome to Your Humanities Half Hour. I'm Catherine Perry, and today we are in the classroom of a Chamorro Language Heritage Studies teacher, Claire Cabrera, here at Oleai Elementary. Claire, thanks for having us today.
Thank you for having me.
So excited to chat with you today about what happens here in your classroom. We had Gloria Rushang, who is a Carolinian Heritage Studies teacher, on a few weeks ago. And, I've been trying to find a Heritage Studies teacher to chat with. So I really appreciate you making the time. Maybe start us off with how you interacted with the language. How much Chamorro were you exposed to when you were growing up? You're laughing.
From a very young age, Catherine, honestly, I remember around the age of 6. In the beginning, from the time I started talking all the way up until I was 5, it was like, okay, I was allowed to speak English. But by the time I turned 6, that's when I realized that, my grandmother wasn't responding to me, for any inquiries, what I needed, what I wanted. She wouldn't respond.
If you spoke English?
Yes.
Ooh, okay.
She did that to me. And from then on, I noticed, she knew my understanding was there. She knew that I understood every word she was saying, but she wanted me to let it out.
And how did that feel when you had to start speaking it more? Did it come naturally?
I was frustrated at first, but at the same time, it was like, I know what they're saying. I remember feeling like, okay, I guess I'll just start speaking it. And from then on, up to this day, I still speak to my aunties, my uncles, full on in Chamorro. And honestly, even if they should speak to me in English, like my younger aunties, my younger uncles, and even my cousins, I would still speak to them in Chamorro. It comes out naturally, and even since then, it started coming out naturally, and up until this day.
How did you get to be in this position here in the classroom?
I first started off as a classroom teacher. I started off teaching in the year 2013. But it wasn't until the year 2021, just very recently, actually since 2017, I was the immersion teacher up at Cankman Elementary School. Immersion.
Okay.
I served as the immersion teacher for 2 years.
Which is basically teaching all the subjects in Chamorro, or pretty much all the subjects.
Yes, all the
Chamorro,
subjects.
Including science, social studies.
Mm-hmm. Yes. And then it wasn't until 2021 when I jumped into the pool of Chamorro Carolinian Language Heritage Studies. And I noticed, even before that year, I noticed there was a need. There was a huge need. And if it were to be anything that I could do to contribute to this department, to the Chamorro Carolinian Language Heritage Studies Department, I could use my experience and whatever training, expertise that I had in the regular classroom and bring it here to further strengthen and fortify teaching our native language, our customs, and our culture. I grew up with the language. I grew up with the culture, grew up with the customs. So my thought pattern was, how could I use that to kind of not alleviate, but to help and further fortify the instruction?
What was it that happened to you? It sounds like something happened when you started teaching immersion. Maybe not, but what was it that made you say, because being a regular classroom teachers hard enough, but then to go to an indigenous language where maybe there aren't that many resources, maybe you're starting from scratch with the kids. What was it that made you feel like, I'm willing to do this extra work and transition to this field?
It was the importance and the value that I saw in it. It was extremely important. Not only, even though I was teaching a kindergarten classroom as an immersion teacher, but what happens after that? Yes, there's like the teachers would follow their students. However, at a certain grade level and then beyond, what's going to happen after that? So at least now that I'm here at Olia Elementary School teaching 3rd through 5th, I am not only preparing my students for what I have to offer in the classroom, what I teach in the classroom, but then afterward. So my 5th graders, I am preparing them for 6th grade CCLHS. And I do so in a manner where it is practically getting their feet wet with what 6th grade CCLHS has to offer. And why do I do this and why do I prepare them so much? It is because I want them to actually start speaking. They should be speaking our language already. From kindergarten or 1st grade, whenever they start receiving CCLHS instruction, the basics, the intermediate, and from there they should be able to speak. And that's what I want to see. That's the vision I have for our program. That is the importance I put on our program.
What is the ability of you're seeing of kids? You have multicultural students.
Yes.
Not just of Chamorro descent, but really anybody, I think, who is assigned to the class or wants it. Mm-hmm. So what is the ability you're seeing, especially of the Chamorro students or those who grew up in Chamorro families?
Okay, so mixed abilities. I have a couple kids who are already not fluent, but like in the way they pronounce words, they could actually put sentences together. So I would say that's my advanced kids. They came from home speaking. And then I have my intermediate kids who the understanding is there. I speak to them in Chamorro. They know exactly what I'm saying. They would still respond in English, but at least the understanding is there. And then, of course, I have my non-speakers. Some of the students who come in from the previous school year, who come into my classroom for 3rd grade, that just may need refreshing. But after the refreshment, that's when they get back into gear and they start accumulating more from my lessons. So I still have students that just do not speak at all, but at least they show the effort and the interest. I guess it's just the way I deliver my lessons. It's just what we do in the classroom that gets them to that interest level.
Can you tell us about a typical day? You only have the kids for I think you said 2 periods a week? Or? I have 6 classes a day, 40 minutes a period.
Okay. So that's
So do you see the kids every day and get to work with them every day?
Twice a week. So it's I've got 2 different cohorts.
So what is a typical day? They walk in and what?
No, they would start, and from then, the moment they walk in, they come over to their seats. And before we start every lesson, we pledge our allegiance. We recite the Pinimete and the Akapal, and we recite it loud and proud. And afterward, that is when we start our greetings. And if, for example, they've got homework from the previous evening, I would simply ask, like no si itetum gumat nalum.
Turn in your homework.
Yes.
Take out your homework. Put in something there. Okay.
And from there, right afterward, we begin our lesson. But I do not begin a lesson until I introduce their vocabulary. And from then, we review until they have mastered their vocabulary words. And from there, they're able to connect pieces together using their vocabulary words.
Absolutely.
So it's from there, it's like they're filling in the blanks, not only mentally, but of course, they're trying orally as well to start putting them together and saying it. So that's how I would deliver lessons. However, I do incorporate technology as well. With our students nowadays, it's all about the iPads, it's all about the phones, the laptops. So I decided to grab their attention with what they use on a daily basis.
Yeah. So how do you do that? What are some examples?
There are certain educational softwares that I use, such as Nearpod. They love Kahoot. They love my Canva presentations, and that's how I project what they need to learn. For example, vocabulary, examples of sentence frames. As you can see up here on my whiteboard, I have an example sentence frame. That's how I would use technology, and from there, they're able to also interactive educational technology. So they have a lot of fun with that. Kahoot, Nearpod, quizzes, those softwares that are online. Yeah.
So are you creating some of your own resources using these platforms, or is there already stuff available, or do you take the English and convert it to Chamorro? What do you find is the most effective usage of this technology?
I create my own.
Wow.
I create my own. I do collaborate with Ms. Josie Agutu. Shout out to her. We work hand in hand when it comes to content alignment.
Does she also teach
yes.
Chamorro Heritage? Okay.
From kinder through second.
Oh, okay.
Yes. So from there, we work hand in hand, and that's how we get things done. I would make sure and cross-check with her. Are you on this lesson yet? Wait, I'm not done. Okay, wait, give me another week with these guys because they need to, master this vocabulary, that vocabulary. She's like, okay, shoot. I was like, okay. And from there, even with this, we would share with each other, what am I using? Here, you can use this. So it's the resources that we create. But of course, we need to tailor it to what their learning needs are. So her level versus my level. It's two different spectrums, but it's teaching the same thing.
Do you collaborate much with teachers from other schools?
When we do have our PDs, when we do have our professional developments, we come together to share ideas, what effective practices that we do in our classrooms, share strategies, and just check up on each other, like, hey, what are you guys teaching in middle school, or what are you guys teaching in the lower elementary? So from there, like for me in my position, I know where you're
coming from and where you're heading to.
Yes, coming and heading out to. So yeah, that's how we collaborate.
I wanted to ask, could you demonstrate for us how you might teach a phrase in your class? Teach us a phrase, how you explain it to the kids maybe, and then I want our listeners to tune in, because in the second half of the show we're going to come back to this phrase and see if you can remember it or not. But give us a phrase that you might teach, and how would you introduce it, explain it, break it down? How do you do your magic with the kids?
Okay, so let's see. A phrase that I would introduce is, in the beginning of the school year, for example, a student of mine comes up and does a presentation, both in Chamorro and English, again, vocabulary plays a big part. A phrase would be, Maulik bidom, you did well. And I would teach them, I would break it down and even compare it to the literal English translation and the grammatically correct translation. So that's how I would break it down. And of course, Maulik, Bida, the root words. Sometimes we have to get into root words, and then from there, the possessive pronouns, those parts of speech. So currently, we're working on adjectives, verbs, and nouns as well. And this would be like a 5th grade lesson. So as you can see up here, you only see words. However, those were the vocabulary words that were introduced to them. Now, what we see at the bottom is the breakdown of where...
Adjective with a blank, and then the word an, and then the verb with the blank, e, and then gaga.
Gaga is the animal.
Oh, okay.
See, I don't even write animal.
Monster. Gaga can also be monster.
Yes, that's exactly what one of my students said. There was this one time where I asked them, okay, atanesi palabra, how fast in a palabra?
What is this
Gaga. Oh, fakumekelenya gaga.
What does it mean?
Monster. He proudly raised his hand and said monster. I said, you're not wrong. You're actually correct.
Okay, so you give them the vocabulary words and then the basic structure of a sentence, and you have them put the words into the sentence so it makes a proper sentence.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's
the sentence Maulik bidom is Maulik is
good,
which is an adjective.
Bida is like a verb, doing.
Okay.
And then that dash mu is that pronoun.
Okay, meaning yours.
Yes, yours. Yes. But really, if you flip it around, you did well. But the literal translation would be good, doing, you.
You, yes. Maulik bidamu. All right. We're going to come back in the second half of the show and test all you listeners and see if you can remember that. We'll be back with more after this break.
I Northern Marianas Humanities Council bula guinahanya puri historian Marianas dan kultura. Sinyon soda esisihanan formasyon gi zon mami website nmhcouncil.org pat bisita gi YouTube pat Facebook. Guajalokwi diferentes klasen leblu na sinya un fan. I Northern Marianas Humanities Council has uzura todo I experiencia tautau.
Welcome back to Your Humanities Half Hour. We are in the classroom with Claire Cabrera here at Oleai Elementary. She is the Chamorro Language Heritage Studies teacher. Claire, what are the important values and customs you try to transfer to your students during their time with you from the Chamorro culture?
From the Chamorro culture, I highly value the value of respect, or should I say respeto, and I would teach them about the everyday value of inafamaulik. Respeto that is most commonly seen in practically any culture, and this goes out to any student from that particular cultural background, not necessarily Chamorro Carolinian, but also in other cultural backgrounds as well. It's a universal value. And then goes the value of inafamoli. Inafamoli, it means to work together, to get along. Why do I teach them, put so much emphasis on teaching them this particular value? It is because of the classroom culture that I want to develop and keep within my students when they enter my classroom. So the value of inafamoli, it's them working together to not only become independent problem solvers, but also for them to work with one another to solve problems. And at the same time, what they can share with one another and how they can help each other out. We're not in the time of pandemic anymore. So the beauty of it and bringing this back is seeing them working together. You know, during COVID-19, those days, all to themselves. And culturally, the way I see it, it's like even there are times when I would see within our community, within, you know, our own people, it's all to themselves. But really, in Afamaulik, it goes out to our citizens, our native people. That is who we are, and that is what I teach my students. That is who we are. We are a people of harmony. We are a people of working together. We are a people of acceptance. Accepting each other's differences. Working together to accept those differences, and at the same time come up with something beautiful that we can all benefit from. That value of Inafamaulik, if they should promote, they move on, middle school, high school, I want them to take that with them and to always remember that that is who we are. Carry it with them, because from there, they too will become better citizens. They too will become better people in general, all around.
What can we do as family members, especially if parents or grandparents know how to speak Chamorro or know about the culture, as schools, as communities, what can we do to help you in your work to perpetuate the language and the culture?
I feel that our various agencies that deal with our Indigenous Affairs Office, CAO, our Humanities Council, we should all come together to start some sort of outreach program to where we can invite families, our younger parents, to come in and learn from, you know, similar to a classroom structure, but more interactive, practical use.
More
That's
like a party classroom, you know, you get together, there's some food, maybe, socialize.
Probably, but the socializing too, you know, that could also play a big part in coaxing our community members to start using the language. You know, I notice a lot of our younger parents, honestly, they may understand it, but what about the speaking? Can they speak? Do they really understand it? That is why I feel like our other government, nonprofit, private organizations, we should come together. Of course, along with us, you know, I know PSS is making a move toward doing something like that, to have some sort of outreach program for not only Chamorro, but also for Carolinian. I think that would really help, especially if we were to invite families, you know, the younger generation of parents, come in. Mm-hmm. Come in so we can, you know, bring back our native language. Mm-hmm. In fact, just recently, a couple CCLHS teachers went off to a native language conference in Guam. Ms. Gloria Rushang was one of them. And man, from what the stories that I was hearing from over there and what was going on, what they're doing, you know, we could certainly do something like that out here as well, in order to perpetuate, to influence, and at the same time bring out that interest to keep our native language going. Mm-hmm. So if we were to come together with those various agencies, then let's do that. Let's put our minds together. Maila za tafan afamoli za ta atan todo mundo sinya koski sinya ta tanaguaha programa ni para ta continua fumano gui linguaje. We have to.
Come together.
Coming together.
Save the language. Okay, so for our listeners, if you can remember the phrase that Claire taught us in the first half of the show that says, good job, right? It's the English translation. The word good is malik. And the word doing is bida. And the pronoun, as you said, is mu. So, gof, very gof malik bidamu. Miss Cabrera. Please close us out with your final thoughts before we go. And feel free to speak in the vernacular if you'd like.
Magana tagwini hinibenulo importante niya para ta proteger para ta continua ilinguahita zani kuturota debi mampus importante cada generación ni mamaila está la cuenta adumididi little by little estamos malilingo ilinguahita zani tiningo y kuturota zani costumbre. I just want all of our listeners to really think about it, because our language is our identity. And as I was mentioning earlier, the misconception of not speaking your native language and learning to be fluent in another, that was a big misconception, because we have our smarts. Man malati na toto di putsi guati ni ngota tozo tinungone yochu na son toto. We have our skills, we have our smarts. We need to bring it out. But at the same time, that's what keeps us remembering who we are. Yes, our language is already a melting pot, and it is a mezclado todo este linguajita. Lo, hanafanaasuit, historiata, afamabidata, lo, hafa disdipogu, tagogoti, which is our language and our culture. It's our identity that keeps us connected as who we are, but also helps us recollect on our history, what we've gone through, but at the same time allows us to appreciate what we still have. But our language too, the way I see it, helps us to look forward to what we will continue to have and what we will have. It's all about our works, our words, and our deeds. What are we going to do about it? So this is why I take my profession very seriously. I love what I do. Honestly, I've never been happier. I love what I do. If it's not through song, it is through poetry. If it is not through poetry, it is through stories. And my kids love stories, especially the stories of me growing up. And I tell them, the way I grew up, my grandparents made sure, my grandmother especially, she made sure that I held on to the language up until she left me and up until she left our family. Yep, my grandfather too. He passed away back in 96, but his stories lived on through what my grandmother would tell all of us. Don't forget who you are. Don't forget where you came from. Stay humble. But at the same time, make sure you take care of each other. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you
so much for having me.
Yeah, thank you for sharing and for all the valuable work you're doing.
Thank you.
Our guest today has been Claire Cabrera. She is Chamorro Language Heritage Studies teacher at Oleai Elementary. This has been Your Humanities Half Hour. I'm Catherine Perry.
Your Humanities Half Hour is a production of the Northern Marianas Humanities Council, funded in part by the National Endowment for the Humanities. Any views, findings, or recommendations expressed in this program are those of the participants and do not necessarily represent those of the National Endowment for the Humanities or the Northern Marianas Humanities Council.